All right, next we're going to move on to Joshua S. Hopping. Joshua is a Cherokee Nation tribal member of Celtic Cherokee heritage, currently residing in Idaho, the traditional land of the Shoshone and Bannock tribes, people who are still with us today. He's a passionate follower of the Creator with a love for all life, human and non-human. He considers himself a Christian mystic who embraces the mystery of knowing and non-knowing while journeying daily along the way of the historical Jesus of Nazareth. He is the author of The Mystery, the Way, and the Journey, Walking into the Darkness of the Unknown. I'm very excited to have Joshua as one of my speakers today. I'm interested to hear what he has prepared. Welcome, Joshua.
Oh, Shio, thank you so much for allowing me to come. I don't know if we could share screens or not. I did have
Yes, you should be able to share screen.
It says it's disabled.
Uh-oh. Brent, can you take a look at that?
So, yeah, why they figured that part out? If it's not a big deal, if not, but I did have some quotes and stuff doing it. So, before we get started, thank you, Jill, for that introduction, and for everybody else who's spoken beforehand. I do appreciate it. It's been a lot learning. Even what Kevin mentioned beforehand, it definitely is. As an indigenous person, it definitely is a struggle. It's definitely interesting, put it that way. But let me share you a little bit more about who I am. I think that in a lot of ways, American European culture tends to focus on what we do. I really want to kind of share a little bit about who I am, because I think the message is connected with the messenger. I don't think you're not able just to share facts and figures or logic without actually knowing the people who's actually speaking. So in a lot of ways, the message that I share about the Creator is intertwined with my life, my journey, my family, my non-human relatives, the rocks, trees, animals, everything around me is intertied into this message. So be able to share a little bit about that to be able to understand what I will share. So with that, as Jill mentioned, I am a passionate follower of the Creator with love of all life. Really, I kind of emphasize the human and non-human. It's been kind of so much of the time we tend to focus on just our human relatives. And it's like we really do have to realize that we are interconnected with all, everything, the rocks, the trees, life, plants. It's like we're all part of this life deal. I am a Cherokee Nation tribal member, deep roots into the Cherokee Reservation down in Adair County on Mission Mountain area, connected with the Langley family, if you are anybody from the Cherokee, that area. My family is a multi-ethnic family. As you see, my skin's a little white, so we've intermarried in with some of the English and the Scottish and Germans and such. We've had African Americans, Puerto Ricans, Hispanics, there's Crow, there's South Koreans, all within my extended family, because humans are humans, and we will sometimes find mates on a lot of places, which actually then helps us to share and hear from the various traditions of those ethnicities that kind of pulled together, even though we're trying to keep our own as well alive. As I said, I had a picture, again, it's kind of not working, but I was to share a picture of my lovely bride. I've been married for 22 years, and I have three wonderful boys, 12, 7, and 4, which keeps me going. And then I have my non-human, my animal relatives. I have like 6 chickens and a dog, and we have a garden that we grow. We try to kind of live in union with each other, which is also part of coming in. And, though I grew up in the Cherokee and even on the Osage Reservation in Oklahoma, I have been living in Idaho, which is the land of the Shoshone and the Bannock people, which has been a really good sojourn out here for the last 20 years. Now, again, as part of my life, I've had my work life and professional life has been in the online brand protection world, doing anti-counterfeiting and trademark abuse. But I've also served as a pastor and a church planner. And I've also been an author. As Jill said, I've published a few books, most notably The Mystery, the Way, and the Journey, Walking into the Darkness Unknown. So that's a little bit.
It looks like you should be able to share now. You want to give it a try?
I will. Oh, excellent. Perfect. See if that comes through. Can y'all see the screen? Is
Yep,
my
looks
screen coming
good.
through? Perfect. All right. Well, I will skip ahead a little bit on this one. You can see my wife. I usually show my pictures of my kids, but they're not around. This is the land of the Shoshone Bannock people in Idaho. Is really touches my heart. Some of the books, but the keeping in with time. I really want to talk a little bit about the land of my youth. You know, when you grow up, the land speaks to you. The land will actually help you understand how you relate to the Creator. There's something that's actually in there. And when I grew up in kind of the foothills of Ozarks, there on the Cherokee Res, the Ozark Mountains, always say, are kind of their old mountain. They're rounded with age. There's like little hollers, and there's trees, and there's vegetation, and there's all this thing all around you when you're coming. And if something falls to the ground, within 3 years, you know, it'll become dirt and it comes into it. In fact, this right here, this is my great grandfather had built this barn, and it was considered the new barn when I was growing up. And as you see over the last, 15, 20 years, it's grown up, and it's like, that's the way of the land. You're growing up with it. Now, as I think about that, I actually think that a lot of times in America, Christianity kind of gets into that, because I've talked about myself being a Christian mystic. And I think sometimes Christianity in America is like, it's like the overgrown with all of these trees and all this stuff around us that we just kind of like, okay, it's there without actually taking a look at it. When I was a child in Oklahoma, I would look at the rocks, and there's these fossils in the rocks, the limestone, and I spent hours looking at it, kind of staying there. And it's like, it's digging back under the thing to look under the surface. And when I say that, I think Oliver Clement says it's great. He says, not only Christianity is something strange to people today, but it cannot even attract by the strangeness, because people are familiar with the dissertations and characteristics of it, which are constantly being hawked around. It is painful. I think Kevin shared about the abuses of the boarding school and stuff, and that is a huge pain. And there's days that I don't want to even be considered a Christian because of the abuses to my own family, my own people that happens. But then there also is something in there as well. And I'll get to why I still am a follower of Christianity, why I use that terminology. But I just want to say, unpack it a little bit, because I think the word term Christianity can be a negative, toxic term in some ways. John Claude actually said that Christianity is an Oriental religion and mystical religion. And then, which I would even go on to say that it's not so much a religion as it is a way of life. It's a way of focusing on Jesus of Nazareth. Bishop Callisto Ware actually says this. He says, Christianity is more than a theory about the universe, more than a teachings written down on paper. It's a path on which we journey. It's the deepest sense of life, a way of life. And this may sound strange to some people, because again, I know there's a lot of stuff, dissertations being thrown out there, but I think when we look back through the layers, we look through, the forest, and we get beyond the forest, and we really start looking and paying attention to the mountains and the rocks and the trees that are coming in there. We really kind of start seeing that there's something deeper that's beyond the dissertations that are actually been twisted. They're almost a bastardization of the faith in so many ways, but it is following of Jesus of Nazareth as a way of life. John the Apostle once said, he goes, I'm not writing you a new commandment, but an old one, which you've had since the beginning. The old commandment is a message you've heard. And I'm writing a new commandment, and this truth is seen in him and in you, because the darkness is passing and the true light is shining. Creation is good. Life is good. I think there's this thing of where the Creator has left a spark within each of us. We were created in his image, or in her image, if you want to use that terminology, or they image, if you want to use a neutral pronoun. I don't think the pronoun matters. But when you look at the Creator, I think the Creator, when she left this image into us as we walk through it. And as being to come back to those original teachings of life, of walking in that path, is getting beyond just the intellectual thinking of, oh, it's Sunday or this or that. It's a way of life. It's how do we do it? There was, I think in one way, it was talking about our spirituality it's in the mundane things. It's how do we wash our hair? How do we drink our coffee? How do I talk to my kids? How do I treat my animals? How do I treat my lawn? How do I, all those things is that way of life that comes in there that I think is very important to be able to have. And it's that which I think is really powerful in that way. So I think also King David, this is more the Hebraic, that tradition that's kind of been part of what's now called Christianity. It says that the heavens declare the glory of God, the skies proclaim the works of his hands. Day after day they pour forth speech, and night after night they reveal knowledge. They have no speech, they use no words, no sound is heard for them, but their voice goes out into all the earth, and their words into the world. And that's that thing of the Creator has left her fingerprints throughout it. Now, when it comes to why the core of Christianity, the core of why even I, as an indigenous person, still kind of follow this, it does come down to Jesus of Nazareth. And what I mean by that is I really think that there's something really special about Jesus of Nazareth in that he was the Creator. It was this mystic experience of this mystery thing of where the Creator actually became created to be able to help us through. John says, the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God. The Word was God. He was with God in the beginning, and through him all things were made. Without him, nothing else had been made. In him's life, and that life is the light of mankind. The light shines in darkness, and darkness has not overcome it. The Word became flesh and dwelt among us. We have seen his glory, and the glory of the one and only Son, who came from the Father, full of grace and truth. It is this sense that the Creator became the created. One of the great saints of yesterday, the early church, says, let him or her marvel at what so ordinary means divine to be manifest to us, that by death mortality has been reached to us all, and that by the Word become man, the universal providence has been made known. It is giver and a ticker of the very Word of God. For he's made man that we might be made man. Or he was made man so we might be made God. He has manifested himself into a body that may receive the ideal of the unseen Father. He has endured the insolence of man so we might inherit immortality. It is that sense that the Creator, again, it's just, again, it may sound crazy, and I guess that's where the mystic, because I think it is a really mystical thing, because when you really pull back the layers, when you get into the forest and you start looking beyond the vegetations that sometimes overgrow something, and you start peeling it back, you start realizing that at its core, the faith of Christianity is a lot more mysterious and is a lot more mystical than what we have being talked about in what I would say the abuses of happening right now in a lot of places. There's something really crazy about the incarnation that comes in. Maximus the Confessor said, the great mystery of the incarnation remains a mystery eternal. For not only is what not yet been seen of it is greater than what has been revealed, for revealed merely to the extent that those saved by it can grasp it. But also even what is revealed remains entirely hidden, and by no means as it really is. There's something this powerful about that comes in. It's, I quote a lot because it's pretty powerful to me. This is where I live, my elders, but St. Gregory of Nicaea says, anyone who truly describes infallible light in the language is truly a liar. Not because he hates the truth, but because inadequate of its descriptions. Or even in more modern times, Peter Rollins would say, that which we cannot speak of is the one thing about whom we must never stop speaking. So to me, it's living in that Ozarks, it's living in those mountains where you're going through the woods and the trees and the vegetations and you're looking, and sometimes you can be overwhelmed by this. But when you start looking deeper, you start looking and seeing, you see this mystical element, this element of the incarnation of what do we do with Jesus of Nazareth? Was he a man? Was he a God? Or was he this? Was he that? And unpacking what that is. And that to me speaks the incarnation of being able to say that there's something powerful about that helps me in my way of life, that I deal with everything I do, even how I talk, how I live my life. And yet I understand the mystery that whatever I may say it's inevitably falls short. It can never ever match what the reality is. That's why it's I will always be a liar, because it can never really describe it. Not begin because I'm trying to lie, but because I can never, words cannot even capture the Creator or what that is. But I must continue to talk about it. And I think this is where it takes me into my next journey, which is, I said I've been living along the land of the Shoshone and Bannock people in what's called Idaho, and it's a desert land. And the desert is a shy land. Life stays hidden. Things don't change fast. The paths that you see in these pictures, they will be there for years. There's something that comes with it. Wagon tracks from the Oregon Trail, the mid 1800s, are still visible to today. There's something that just, when you go out in the desert, it teaches you to be slower. It's a different vibe of different land than the Ozarks that's full of just greenery and vegetations. You got to slow down and look. And to me, when I think about that, I look and I say, you know what? I can look at this and I say, I learned that I'm not the first person on this journey. Ancestors have walked with the Creator before. There's people of traditional Jalagi or Cherokees I've talked to who receive visions and dreams in which Jesus of Nazareth has shown up to them, and they said, hey, look, you know, I am one of you. Ane Kotua, I am part of the real people that are here. And so those paths that are coming through there, it's like those experiences that come in that shapes me. Years ago, the end prophet Jeremiah, there was a big fight going on. Jerusalem's being destroyed, and the people of Israel were on the edge and say, what do we do? And he says, you know, stand at the crossroads and look, ask for the ancient paths, ask where the good ways are and walk in it, and you'll find rest for your souls. To be able to follow that, again, this is not a new thing we're talking about, but an old thing. The stories, you think about the stories, at least in the Hebraic Christian scriptures of Abraham, Joseph, Moses, Deborah, they all had an experience with the Creator that shaped their life. The elders of my tribe have had experiences with the supernatural that have shaped their life and going through it. These are what, to me, is like, that's the ancient paths to look back for those who have gone before us and say, hey, what's going on? How do we go? I know a lot of times people talk about the scriptures and realizing that, you know, the scriptures, okay, it can be helpful, but in so many ways it can be mistuned. My brother, who's talking about the Islamic deal here just recently, he was talking about how the tradition of Islam had to interpret that. And I really think that that's powerful, because in the Hebraic and the Christian faith, there are definitely schools of interpretation as well, that we see so much of it being tossed around as harmful instead of being able to be loved. And I think we have to peel back those layers and go back and really dig through the vegetation, so to speak, to find the truth of what's happening. And I mentioned before, and I know I'm kind of throwing a lot of the stream of structure. I'm trying to hopefully save time for some Q&A when we're done, because I know we're kind of going a little bit over. But when I think about being a mystic, people can get concerned about that term. And so I love David Benner. He's a Euro-American. He says a mystic is simply someone who seeks above all else and know God is love. Mystics, therefore, are much more defined by their longing than their experience. They no longer know God's love and thereby be filled with the very fullness of God. Christian mysticism is a participation in his transformational journey towards a union with God in love. Or if you have Charles Conley once wrote, he said, mystery is not a episcopal or not a category into which we throw everything that defines rational explanations. It's a way of being in relationship with God, humanity, and creation. We do not have to stress or strain ourselves to do this. We simply wake up to the presence and become conscious to the presence that's in us and around us. This is the way of mystery. This is what keeps us going. This is what brings life of digging through, looking at the desert, looking at the places going on. Among the Jalagi, we would have this phrase called tohi, and this idea, there's no real good translation into English, but it's a way of peace, of balance, of harmony, a way of being in the world and around with all of our creation in harmony and balance with each other. Realizing that too much sorrow could be a bad thing, but too much victory could be a bad thing. Too much, happiness or too much depression. It's like, it is to be in harmony or balance with this. It's tohi. There's a sense that comes in there that actually really helps us sit in that balance. And I think that is something that's so missing because the typical dominant culture around us, which comes out of the philosophy of the Greek and Romans, and it's very much dichotomy. It's good, bad, it's light, dark, it's perfect, imperfect. It's this or it's that instead of both and. To really follow what I see the Creator or Jesus of Nazareth is to be in tohi with your relatives. You're non-human. You're human, to be able to walk with those before you as well as those who walk after you. That we live not for ourselves, but also for those, again, 7 generations to come after us that comes in, that we have to pay attention to what we're doing today impacts them. It's the way I drink my coffee. It's the way I clean the house. It's the way I work. All of that is the way of life on which we live on the path, which if I come back to Jesus of Nazareth, he once said, love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, all your mind. Is the first and greatest commandment. And the second is love your neighbor as yourself. The way of life of doing that, to me, is it. That is the jewel that I think we can unbury within the faith that carries within it. Tohi within that. So Wado, thank you. I know I kind of went a little fast because I was trying to keep within our time frame. If there's any questions, I would love to hear them.
Thank you so much, Joshua. Now, I do see that there are some questions that have come up, but it seems as though you answered all 3 of them in one beautiful part of your talk. So before, if you want to take a look at them, you can take a look at them and see if there's anything you want to add to that. I'm
trying to actually get back to the questions. I can't figure out how to turn off my Zoom.
The questions say, when I'm in nature, I feel connected to the natural world and feel closer to God. Do you have any suggestions for feeling close to nature and closer to God when we're in a city?
I struggle with living in a city. I really do struggle. I live in a suburb right now, kind of a smaller community, about 25,000 people next to a town of about 200. Even that makes me nervous. I have to leave and get out as much as I can to try to get out. But for those who are unable to, for me, I think a lot of times suggestions is grow. Start a garden, have a plant, have something in your house that you can to be able to do it. Find a park if you can find a park. Be able to set some side of things to be able to go, okay, this is where I can actually go and actually have that calmness around that I have. Those I would actually suggest to be able to do it. Or if you're unable to have that, like I said, maybe you're unable to have a garden, try to make periodic trips out of the city to where you go, or like find a park. It's hard, and I know that not everybody has that, but hopefully that will help a little bit. If you really have none of that, blessings to you. I don't know how you would walk. That would be extremely hard.
Okay. There's a question here. How do we connect with and communicate with the spirits of the rocks and plants and animals?
Well, I think that's a good question. For me, it's stillness. It's being still. It's going out there. It is sitting. It's there. When I go out into the mountains, so like this is a picture. I was hiking with my son last year. And I go out there with the rocks, to sit on the rock. And when I come on there, ask permission to sit. And then you sit and you just listen and you just kind of be still. I think so much in our digital age, we're constantly bombarded by entertainment and things. And if we actually pause and stop and be still, then I think we'll hear from our non-human relatives. We'll hear from the trees, the rocks, the animals, because we can actually start seeing this coming into it. And so, I think that's one way to really connect to it, is to be still and to stop and just listen, and allow yourself to see what they have to say.
Excellent. Thank you. And then the last question here, how do you follow the mystic path without getting lost in the weeds?
No, that assumes the weeds are bad. Not all weeds are bad. Weeds are some things that what we call weeds are actually flowers. Dandelions are actually a beautiful flower that feeds our bees and supports our ecosystem, but a lot of people will call them a weed in their gardens. So I would be careful about what getting lost is, because, or what weeds are, because sometimes you may find treasures in that journey. But I would say, to me, my journey is to follow the ones before you. There is, like this talk, and there's a lot of people who followed the path before us. For me, within the Christian mystic path, there's different mystical paths. We've heard different people talk. For me, it's going back to the early church fathers. It's going to some of those people who have been recognized by the community as saying, these are people who have, who's something seen and valuable coming on them. St. John of the Cross, St. Teresa of Avalon. There's so many people that have actually kind of bubbled through the years. It's going back to, like for me, Crossan Smith, one of the Jollagee elders. So it's actually surrounding those who've gone before you, who have actually passed away. It's actually being lived in community. The mystic path is one, I think, where you have to have other people around you. We're not to be in isolation. We're not an isolated, individualistic kind of, go off into the sky kind of stuff. We have to be lived in community. So that way, when you're seeing something and you're going like, well, am I off kilter? Is this not fitting with the love and compassion in balance and harmony? Then you could talk to those people around you and say, hey, what do you think about this one? What about this? What about that? And then they can help guide you and pull you around. So it's your community that you have right now. It's the community of your ancestors who've come before you. And then, of course, it's just the spirit. The spirit, she is an amazing thing. I think, within the Christian tradition, when Jesus of Nazareth was going to the cross, his last night, when he was looking at his followers and he said, you'll be scattered and I will die. He goes, I will send you the Holy Spirit and that she will guide you into all truth. He didn't say, I will give you a book. Here's a book, follow the book, or go follow the Torah, go follow it. He said, I will send you the Spirit of the Creator and she will guide you into that. And so I think that is part of also to help us guide us as well.
That's a great segue into my next question. I love your answer, by the way. My personal question is, being a Christian mystic, obviously you value the scriptures. You have the Old Testament and the New Testament, but how, and you probably look at some of the other literature throughout Christianity, but how do you incorporate some of those other Eastern teachings? Do you study Eastern religion? Do you look at, for example, the Mahabharata, or you look at the Bhagavad Gita, or you look into Buddhism and you read the Dhammapada and you incorporate that all together? Or do you what do you think what are your scriptures, you personally, and how do you view, and so sorry, we don't have very much time, but how do you view other cultures' words from Creator?
No, it's very good. I definitely think, first of all, I think the Creator has left his image in all people all the time. I don't think he's ever, or she, again, whatever pronoun you use, has ever abandoned anybody. So I definitely think there's echoes of the Creator throughout all cultures and all thought spiritualities, which I think is really cool. For myself, I have not really dove into, like I said, some of the Buddhism or other different Hinduism, other different things. I've dove a little bit, but not real deep. Mostly because of time, to be quite honest. I really leaned into the Jollagee tradition, my tradition as an indigenous person here, and really trying to really follow those, as well as looking into some of the, again, what we would call the Bible. Granted, there's actually some Eastern Orthodox faith that includes some other chapters besides the Protestant Bible. So I think there's some other areas in there. So I've really kind of leaned into that, into some of the Celtic Christianity of my ancestors, but then also to the Jollagee. But it's mostly because of time. You only have so much hours to be able to spend. I would love to be a full-time person being able to ponder and pray through this stuff. But as an individual who has a full-time job and working, this is not always possible. If I could become a monk, though, that would be awesome.
Right, and a family. You have children too, right? So there's only
Exactly.
time in a day.
Yes, but yes, I've actually thought about being a monk would be fun, because then you would have more time to really ponder the path of the journey. But that journey is not my journey. So
I understand. Thank you so much, Joshua. I really appreciate you coming to speak and share with us today.
thank you. Wado.